Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Talking Real Estate with Chambers Real Estate Team here, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate Company. My name is Mark Wehner, second team leader here. So every Wednesday we jump on. I'm gonna run down what's going on in the real estate market over the last 7 days. Kind of jumped on here a little later today. Got a little crazy today, so I'm out working with clients, showing houses, all that fun stuff, and then picking up the kiddos at school. So just got home and maybe we'll jump on here and give you kind of a rundown of what's going on. So quick tip we'll usually talk about, just something to just a real quick tip on the real estate side of it. So I was just thinking today, some of the houses I was showing today. We were kind of going back and looking at property disclosures. One thing I do for my clients is I go back and on the MLS, and you can look at the older listings, and you can pull up, if they're still available, the property condition disclosure statements, probably from when that seller bought the house, or even a couple of transactions back, when that house was sold. So it kind of just gives you a full history of what those sellers have disclosed throughout the process, so that your buyer can make an educated decision. When they're going deciding to do a home inspection, they can make maybe that home inspector aware of some of those items that were, down the road. Just, hey, this had happened 10 years ago. Have that inspector maybe take a closer look at, some of those items that may be on that disclosure. So it's just kind of know what you're buying. You're kind of doing that inspection on the inspection a little bit. So you're kind of getting that idea, because some sellers, well, I wouldn't live in the house when that happened. So it didn't happen when I was there. Well, that owner, if they know about it when they bought the house, they need to disclose that to you as the next buyer. So you got to make sure that just that property disclosure. Like I said, when I'm working with my sellers, I say, hey, disclose anything and everything you know about that house. That buyer can make an educated decision, and therefore they feel more comfortable. You're not hiding anything or trying to pull the wool over their eyes. And ultimately, you don't want to be liable for that. That if they come back and know that you knew that information, and if it does it's getting down a rabbit hole here, but if it does get into litigation, that buyer's attorney is probably going to go back and pull up all those old property disclosures like we would do to show you. And if they go, well, hey, when you bought the house, you knew there was, let's say, water in the basement, but you didn't disclose that on your current time. And, that's always going to go, well, it didn't leak when I was here. Well, you knew it leaked at one time. So those are some things that just kind of protecting you, through that real estate transaction, both from a seller side and from a buyer side. As I always say, buyer beware, and sellers got to disclose. So those are those things that, whether I'm working with a buyer or a seller, see what's the history of the house. And if you know anything about that house, disclose it. That's the best thing, so that everyone's on the same page. No one's trying to hide anything. You don't have any, potential costs or litigation. And, I've had agents go, why would you go all the way back in those disclosures? That's just opening a can of worms. I'm like, well, that's our job. And the other thing too is that, like I said, if it gets to a litigation point, I guarantee those attorneys are going to do their detective work, and they're going to go back and say, you should have known this, as an agent or as a seller, when you bought the house, or you did a home inspection when you bought the house. These are items that came up. Maybe you share that home inspection, whether that's 5 years old or 2 years old or last year when you bought the house. It's just, hey, here's what I know about the house. Here's everything that I know. Now and we can all make an educated decision and move forward with selling the house, and everyone's on the up and up, and everyone's got everything above the table. So that's kind of quick tip that I got for you. Just kind of those disclosures, past inspections, things like that. Those are always something to ask your agent about. And when you're working with an agent here at Champions Real Estate Team, we are on top of that stuff for you. When we committee with the real estate commission. So I'm going to make sure that we're following the letter of the law, so that we ain't sitting in front of the real estate commission getting any complaints or anything. Make sure we're doing you the best service, giving you the top-notch level of education and coaching, that you need to have as a buyer and a seller, to make that transaction as smooth as possible with no surprises. So but yeah, let's jump in here and see what's gone on in the real estate market the last 7 days. So I don't know, maybe some of you guys are listening to some of the national stuff. I mean, I listen to podcasts all the time on the real estate market, just nationally, even here locally. Like I said, I do these videos every week. We kind of try to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on. What we're seeing nationally is you're starting to see a lot of inventory. You're seeing more inventory tick up, across the nation, and so what is that doing? So that's obviously there's more supply than maybe than there is demand, because our interest rates are kind of hovering right around that 6.5%, 6.5 to 7, depending on that range there. And buyers just haven't got that, push to get in the market, some of them, and so as that supply goes up, some of the sellers may think that prices are still from 2023 and things like that. And so, yeah, but it's just making sure that you're educated, on what's going on in the specific market that you're looking in to buy or looking to sell in, and know exactly what's going on the ground level, and not just listening to what's going on nationally because as we see here, the numbers I give you every single week, 27 new listings go live, 401 contracts written, and it's 366 happy new homeowners. So compared to that to last week, we had about 700. So we're down about 80, 70 or 80 there as far as new listings. And our contracts written was at 460. We're down 50 there. So we kind of dropped down just a little bit across the board, and weather's nice. Obviously school's back, so that the activity has slowed just a little bit. And obviously now we're coming into Labor Day weekend, so it's another holiday weekend, kind of the end of the summer, last big hurrah type of thing. So you're going to see, typically in the holiday weekend, you're going to see a little bit lower on numbers, which we saw on Memorial Day, we saw on 4th of July, and those type of things. So, but still a great time to get your house on the market. But biggest thing, putting your house on the market as we go into September, October, November, price that home. You're going to sell a home. You may sell your home or you may sell your neighbor's home that's on the market. What I mean by that is you price your house too high and your neighbor's here. All of a sudden the person goes, oh, I'll get this house for $15,000, $20,000 cheaper for the same type of house. These sellers up here may think they're in 2023 prices. It's not as crazy, but getting that house to be competitive, it kind of goes to my analogy of, do you want to be the bridesmaid or do you want to be the bride? It's kind of a funny thing I always say, when we're looking at that, and it's pricing that house competitively in the marketplace to attract the most eyeballs on that house, get the most activity. And that's our job, is to put it in our marketing plan to attract that amount of buyers. Now, those buyers are going to know what that price is going to get them. What does 500,000 get you? What's 450 get you? What's 550? Those buyers that have been out there, they know what that is. And if you try to shoot them way up here, they're going to be like, no. The buyers I'm working with currently, same thing. This isn't a $300,000 house. This was, the house is worth this, the land, so it's like you're looking at the whole big picture of it and making sure that price is priced right, both from a buyer's perspective and a seller's perspective. Yes, we want to maximize your equity, but we also don't want your house to be stagnant and staying on that market there. Because that's inevitably going to cost you money as you start doing price reductions. Buyers come in, they're going to come down even lower, and then it's a matter of where we can kind of meet to get that house sold wherever, ultimately the buyer wants to buy the house, seller wants to sell the house, and move on from that aspect of it. So let's jump in 30,000 foot view. Here we go. Where to go here? All right, 30,000 foot view. So these numbers didn't really change much from the last couple of weeks, and we saw that we had 627 come on, 401 go off the market, and that's kind of about the par. Last week we were at 700 and 460, 470. So that about that 30 range. So that gap is about the same, that we're keeping those other houses on the market that didn't come off the market. So we're at 436. Last week we were at 456. So we're down 20 houses in the entire Omaha and Lincoln marketplace. Douglas, Sarpy County, Omaha metro area, just over 2,300, down just a little bit, I believe, from last week, 426. Yeah, so we're down 7 houses. 1358 on the existing. So last week we were at where are we at there? Another 20 houses. So and then new construction about the same. Months of inventory is at 3. So we're kind of teetering in that neutral market, I would say. 3 to 6 is kind of that neutral. What we're seeing is sellers are offering concessions. Whether that's offering to allow that buyer to finance their closing costs into the purchase price. Inspections, doing more repairs than what they would have been doing. Things of that sort. So overall, I think it's a great time to get in the market. If you are ready to get in the market and your timing is ready for you. So that's one of those things that, getting in and making that educated decision, and a lot of people, like, about this time of year, they're kind of wrapping up, getting in, and also, we're going to buy a house next spring. We don't want to buy a house in the winter, or let's get in before the holiday season. So let's just get together. Let's get a game plan for you. I can give you a scouting report of what I'm seeing in your specific price range. Like I said, these graphs I give you, these numbers that I give you, this is the overall marketplace. This isn't just breaking down district 66, or you're out in Elkhorn in a specific price point, or in Bellevue or wherever you're at, or up in Blair, to give you an exact idea of what the market's doing there, so that we can approach it and get you a house at a fair price, or market your house at a fair price to attract the most amount of eyeballs, so that you're not getting stagnant on the marketplace. So yeah, if you have any questions, talk to me here at Champions Real Estate Team. Numbers down here at the bottom, 672-7670. Appreciate always chat with you guys here on Wednesday. So if you have any questions, comments, reach out to me. Any of the social media outlets or whatever. If you have any topics you want us to cover, we're happy to cover anything. Like I said, I teach real estate continuing education class that we offer, that we teach to agents. So it's one of those things that I'm going to teach you what the agents are knowing so that you can be competitive, in the marketplace and know exactly how the other team is thinking, the other side is thinking, so that we can formulate a good game plan for you to do what's best for you, to eliminate any surprises or anything like that, and stay in constant contact with all the parties that are involved in the transaction. So appreciate you. Have a great holiday weekend.